Welcome to the TNF Podcast. Like, comment, share, subscribe. Click on that bell for notifications for upcoming shows. And if you're listening on Spotify or Apple Music, give us a follow, give us a rating. That would be fantastic. Upcoming shows we have for you. Scott Dano from Bleeding Through and the Suffering on the 23rd of March at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. On the 26th of March, we have Danielle Dombrowski at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. And Russ Cogdell of Zayo on the 30th of March at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. Please subscribe. Stay dialed in. We got many more upcoming shows for you. And as you can see on the bottom there, I've got a merchandising company, Hell's Heart Merch Co. Go to hellsheartco.bigcartel.com. Use the code 20 for 20% off your entire order. Fine Bella Canvas Tri-Blend t-shirts, 50% polyester, 25% cotton, 25% rayon. They feel like a dream. If you like movies, if you like hardcore, that's your ticket right there. Check them out. All right, my next guest today, he is a hardcore musician. He plays with the likes of the bands Ambition and With Honor, and he is also an author. He goes under the pseudonym TW Piperbrook. I'm actually reading one of his books right now, or as Ray Capo says, reading in 2024, 2025 is listening on Audible.
Okay.
Currently listening to Better Guns and Gardens, but he's got a whole he's got a whole bunch of other books, and they're in series: the Contamination series, the Outage series, the Last Survivor series, and the Ruin series. And he's got some upcoming projects too that we're going to talk about. Ladies and gentlemen, Jay Aust. Thank you for being here, Jay.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Absolutely, and thanks to Rebecca Lohr for hooking this up, too. She's the hardcore cheerleader, and if you don't know who she is, you should definitely follow her on Instagram and check her out. She's fantastic.
Yeah, she's great. We just saw her last night, actually, as we were saying, so, yeah.
Yeah, you guys played a show last night. How did that go?
We did. It was great. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Yeah, it was over in Woodbridge, Connecticut, at a venue called 10 Selden, so kind of a younger scene show, real great vibes, and there's actually 3 Long Island bands and a couple Connecticut bands, so it was kind of a mixed bill, and it was a blast. Yeah, I had a lot of fun.
Nice. Do you feel like a younger crowd is actually receptive to your sound and your bands?
Yeah, I mean, they were super energetic, super into it, so, yeah, I mean, that's kind of one of the cool things about hardcore these days that I find, right? It's like, I know other people have had this conversation too, but like back in the day, it seemed like things skewed a lot younger, because the scene was, it was newer back then, right? And now, you could have people that are older, people that are younger, kind of a nice mix of generations. And then you see people bringing their kids and their kids getting into it. And so it's kind of cool to play to, different scenes, different age groups and things. So, yeah.
And speak of the devil, Rebecca Lohr says, hey, Jay.
Hey, there's the cheerleader. How are you?
That's great. Thanks for coming, Rebecca. And one thing I wanted to mention, anybody else that joins here, if you got questions, please try to save them till the end. We'll get around to all of them. However, if you want to get a question answered mid-show, we've got super chats. Feel free to give a donation. That would be fantastic. Yeah, the younger audience in hardcore, have you seen, it's going around the rounds of like Instagram and TikTok. It's a younger band. They're like 13 and 15, and they play like Madball and No Warning covers. Have you seen them?
Really? I haven't. You've got to send me that, though.
Yeah, it's
cool.
Pretty awesome. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
And like, I wish I knew how to get in touch with them because I would love to have them on this show. I think it's probably way cooler than anything I was doing when I was 13 or 15, so yeah, I'll definitely send you a few of those videos. But, so we talk hardcore on here typically and music. How did you get into music? Like, what was your first exposure to music? Did you have family members that played music? Did you play in a high school band? What's your earliest memory of music? And what was your first show, actually? And that can be a non-hardcore show, actually.
Yeah. So I've got answers. So music was it was always in our house, I was an 80s kid, early 90s kid, whatever, growing up. So, my parents had, I think it was the tail end of the 8-track, right? So I remember being in my dad's, I think it was a van, or he had a Ford Falcon or something back then. And I remember listening to Van Morrison on an 8-track, Brown Eyed Girl, over and over again. It's just, you kind of attach to certain songs and you want to hear them over and over when you're young. But I remember Michael Jackson's Thriller in the video and all that stuff. And my dad was actually, and still is, a very, very good classical guitar player, but he's just totally self-taught. You know, you couldn't pay him money to actually perform in front of people. He just does it for the pure love of it. But yeah, he played classical guitar, and he actually randomly played for his high school talent show an acoustic guitar song, and kind of surprised everybody because nobody knew that he even played. So he always kind of had, you know, acoustic guitars around the house. We had music going. So yeah, I'd say there was music all around. I wouldn't pick up the guitar until later, but I think sometimes just having those things around is how you get into them, you know? So yeah, so that was my earliest, yeah, as far as my first show. And did you have a question? So,
No, I was,
yeah.
yeah, go ahead, continue.
Yeah, so hardcore show was easy, but I actually had to think about what my first concert was, because I don't think I really went to concerts when I was really young. So my first concert, I believe, was, I'm in Connecticut here, and I was big into alternative music when I was a teenager. That was one of my, you know, segues into things. But there was a local radio station called Radio 104, and they played all your Nirvanas, Pearl Jams, you know, Stone Temple Pilots, all that stuff. And they had a fest in Hartford called the Big Day Off, and it was, I got the date. It was 9/21/95. So it was a concert, but it had a lot of alternative bands, and I guess the whole premise was skip school and go to this concert, you know. So I skipped school and you know, went to the concert, and they had a lot of cool alternative bands there. They had I had to look up what the lineup was because I forgot. Dandelion, Belly, Letters to Cleo, Jewel, the Smoking Popes. There was a whole bunch of, you know, so that's kind of what I was into in that moment.
That is definitely a very 90s lineup right there.
Oh yeah, total 90s lineup. Yeah. So I think that was my first concert. Second concert, not that we have to go down the line, but the second concert was Ozzy Osbourne and Life of Agony and Korn.
Oh, wow.
So a little different there. But
Yeah, that's a hell of a genre jump right there.
yeah, so I mean, you know, like I said, music, right? Played the keyboard and all that kind of stuff when I was younger, and later got into the guitar and stuff. But originally I was into, you know, all the hair metal bands of the 80s. Then kind of got into, you know, grunge rock, and from there on to punk and new metal, and then kind of jumped into hardcore. So that's kind of that's the short answer there.
Okay. What were some of the new metal bands you like? Because I definitely had a flirtation with that too.
Yeah, Korn was a big one. Yeah. And it's funny because I remember in the early days of listening to hardcore, you know, when I was kind of getting into that, you know, mixtapes was the thing, right? You trade them. Me and my brother, who's the other guitarist of he's a guitarist of Ambitions, I'm the singer, and we're both a guitarist of With Honor. But we trade mixtapes, and there'd be like Korn and then Earth Crisis on the same mixtape, you know, Shelter, Rage Against the Machine. Like, it's just kind of like, it's all good stuff, you know? It's kind of a blend of stuff, you know?
I've always argued that Korn, if you took Jonathan Davis away from the vocalist position and he put in, say, the vocalist from Disembodied or Bloodlet, hardcore kids would have ate that up.
I'm sure. Yeah, I mean, the music, they're heavy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That Clown song is like, it's so crushing. I listened to it the other day, actually, because Blackest Dawn, have you heard of them?
I'm not sure if I have. Yeah.
Oh, definitely check them out. I'll send you one of their tracks. But they did like a Korn mock shirt, and it had the self-titled cover on it, and then they played Clown, and I was like, that's a heavy-ass song. I'm going to go listen to that again. But
yeah, I remember driving around blasting, you know, putting the bass up when we were in high school, and like Ball Tongue and everything. You know. It was, you know, it had some bass to it too. So yeah.
But it's interesting too, because Korn got their start, like Lou from Sick of It All was on this show, and they took Korn out on their first tour, you know, so they're kind of hardcore adjacent in a way, you know.
Interesting. So I guess it makes those mixtapes, they make sense now.
Yeah, exactly.
We're putting this together now, it all makes sense.
the pieces are all fitting together totally. Yeah, no, I remember God, who were some, I mean, I don't even know that I'd consider Deftones a new metal band. I think they've kind of transcended that, and I think they were kind of unfairly lumped in it. Like they had elements of it, but like if you go back and listen to like Adrenaline, and Adrenaline's probably like their most new metal thing, but like they even kind of sound like Refused and Helmet a little bit, you know, and like but those guys actually had some roots in hardcore. Like you can hear videos of them back in the day of them playing Bad Brains and all this other stuff, you know. So, you know, I give credit where credit's due, and I think they're still an awesome band. I think they're still putting out awesome material, you know. So,
for sure.
Yeah. So, as far as your introduction to hardcore from music, what was your segue in? Well, you said with the mixtapes and stuff, but like, what do you remember as far as like your first shows?
Yeah, so I know my first show for sure. So that was Warzone and Hatebreed at the Bristol CT Bike Exchange in '96. So, and that was, I mean, that clinched it for me. I was like, this is it. This is amazing. And I probably was a little more familiar with Warzone at that point. But you know, obviously it was a skate park, but so the bands, it was like a kind of a big place that had shows at that time, but all the bands would play on the skate ramps. And I remember Rabies, you know, singer of Warzone, just going out into the crowd, everyone just surrounding him, me included, you know. I think I was maybe 16, 17, and
Wow.
just everybody singing along, you know, as one and everything, and free at last, and just the energy of that show was just like amazing, and I was just hooked. That was it. So, yeah, I'm stoked to be able to say that was my first show, and seeing Hatebreed too, of course, you know, Connecticut, right? So, yeah, it
Yeah.
was awesome.
Yeah, man. I mean, Hatebreed was a big one for me, and you know, Warzone, incredible band. You know, I definitely my biggest ones back in the day were Victory Records bands. You know, like that label changed the face of hardcore. You know, like
Yeah.
so many good bands came off that label, and you know, influenced so many later bands. So yeah, definitely. Did you have any proto bands, like high school bands, or anything you did when you were learning guitar?
So I guess my first bands were probably hardcore. I mean, I had like, you know, fake bands when you're a kid with your friends, just kind of keyboard stuff. My buddy, Dan Salazar is a guy I used to hang out with. We used to do stuff with keyboards. I think we had a band called Twilight or something, but you know, as far as legit stuff, I don't think I had anything until the hardcore days. So I had a few bands prior to With Honor. Actually, I was in a metal band called HAMARTIA prior to With Honor.
HAMARTIA, that's right. You were in
So
HAMARTIA. Yeah.
I guess that was the first semi-legit band that we had. So
Yeah.
my first band was called Fall Away, and that became Crestfallen. Each of those probably played, you know, 5 or 6 shows total, right? And then HAMARTIA was a little bit more of the serious, you know, we were doing more of this Swedish metal kind of thing at the time.
Right.
So yeah, so that was, and then we went to With Honor from there. So
Yeah,
lots of genre
Marcus.
jumps here.
Yeah, definitely. Well, and I
Yeah.
mean that just kind of shows the versatility of a musician is when they can kind of play in different styles and whatnot. I've always wanted to play stuff like Ambitions plays and like Stretch Armstrong and like you know good clean fun and just real like super Bane, super positive stuff. There's just never any interest around here. When you talk about like the Swedish metalcore, that was huge around here in North Carolina. That was all anybody played here in like the late '90s, early 2000s. And don't get me wrong, I like that music. I wasn't, I didn't feel as connected to it as I did like some of the, you know, like the early Revelation bands and like, you know, Stretch Armstrong and stuff like that.
Yeah,
So,
that was pretty much my first love too, like I said. So I was all about the old school hardcore, the straight edge hardcore, the positive stuff. You know, we had a lot of great bands in Connecticut. Like Fast Break was a huge one for me and my circle of friends. So that was usually that was kind of my first love, was all the old school traditional hardcore, the Revelation bands, Youth of Today, Bold, Battery, In My Eyes, all that stuff. So that was
yeah.
kind of, I think that was more on the tip of where I was, and then you kind of get into more things, right? You kind of build on that. So I think we've kind of we returned to that after HAMARTIA with Honor and Ambitions a little more so.
Yeah.
But I mean, at the time, you know, I was into, you know, a lot of the old school bands, and then I heard, you know, obviously I liked some of the heavier stuff too prior, and then I heard In Flames, Colony, and when I got that
great
CD,
album.
yeah, I mean, I remember reading a magazine, and it described In Flames Colony at that time. It said it was melodic death metal. I said, melodic death metal? That doesn't even make sense. I said, I've got to get this and see what the fuck this is. So,
Yeah.
I remember picking it up. We took a trip down to one of the record stores that was big at that time in Connecticut. It was called Phoenix Records in Waterbury. I remember grabbing that CD and just popping it in and just being blown away. I think the first track is Embody the Invisible. Is that the first track?
I believe so, yeah.
It kicked in with the drum fill, and we were hooked. So, our group kind of got into, soil work and a lot of the stuff like that. So
Killswitch Engage.
Killswitch Engage was Hamartia played with Killswitch. One of Killswitch's first shows when Adam D was on drums, and they were four-piece. So I think it was in New Jersey. So we were lucky enough to play that show and see Adam on drums and see again a four-piece. So it was really cool. But so we kind of did that whole thing for a little while and put out a record on Good Life Recordings. I think in '99.
Yeah, I believe you're correct about that. And interestingly enough, I was about to reference Undying and kind of tie it into the punk and like hardcore stuff. Like if you listen to those Undying albums, they're very punk influenced. They've got a lot of like punk drumming and just fast up tempo stuff. And I guess that was kind of indicative of a lot of the like the Gothenburg like Swedish metal stuff. But fantastic. That album still blows me away. Also, Good Life Recordings too. And back to Hamartia, Mark Castillo actually used to live up here in North Carolina when he was playing for Between the Buried and Me.
That's right. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were just talking to him the other day through text, trying to figure out we've got a Hamartia show coming up. So that's a whole other thing. Yeah, we're playing Hellfira Fest in July, I believe. So.
Oh, man! I'm half tempted to go to that. If the wallet allows it, I'll probably check that out. I was supposed to go check out the original Hellfest in 2000, and I had family that lived up in upstate New York, and they kept making it sound like it was going to get canceled, so I never went. And then they did it, and I hate myself for it. So
yeah, gotcha.
But yeah, so you played in Hamartia for a while, and Hamartia, sick fucking band. You guys were incredible, and then I used to play in a band, and we opened for the band In Pieces. And Jack, the bass player, like told me that he was starting a new band called With Honor, and like he sent me the demo. I think he mailed it to me actually because I think was
wow.
I think this was pre like any sort of like solid like streaming services or anything like that.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, this is like night and day from In Pieces, and so, yeah, I caught you guys a few times in Charlotte and I think maybe in Greensboro, North Carolina. And yeah, you guys were definitely bringing that youthful energy, but at the same time, you guys had like this technicality to it, a la like, I've always said that, Shai Hulud, granted they were on Revelation, but they embodied the spirit of those older Revelation bands, but with like a technical prowess and whatnot. Do you think that that kind of carried over from Hamartia, or what were you guys listening to at the time that was influencing you?
As far as Hamartia, Shai Hulud was huge for us. Yeah, I mean that was another record like In Flames where we popped in that EP and that it was life changing. It was like. Because exactly what you're saying, it was a combination of the values and ethics of hardcore and traditional kind of sound. They had the fast beat kind of stuff, but then it had the technicality too. So it kind of had that metal blend. And I mean, yeah, we wore those CDs out. So, and later we're lucky enough to, to this day become friends with them and tour with them and stuff. And actually Eric Dellon from Shai Hulud is in Ambitions now. He plays with us, which is amazing. Yeah, so he's a great guy.
How did that feel? Like you're like, wow, a band that heavily influenced us is one of their members is now playing with us.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, I think generally that's one of the coolest things about hardcore to me, or at least my personal experience was just kind of, my group of friends and my brother, when we got into hardcore, we're from a town called Farmington in Connecticut, which is just kind of a, it wasn't like it wasn't a mecca. Hamartia's playing. Yeah, we're fine. After 23 years, we're actually we're pulling it together and playing. but yeah, we grew up in a place that there was one hardcore kid in my class, right? And he was a vegan straight edge guy. And that was it in my senior class, so we sort of went to shows on our own. We didn't really know anybody, like we go to that Bristol skate park or the Hanover House in Meriden and just kind of did our own thing. But what I'm saying is the cool thing is that we have since kind of branched out and met all these people through bands. And we're lucky enough to tour with a lot of our idols over the years, like bands that we listened to back then or since, and they become friends, which is just amazing, So
Yeah.
yeah, so
Hardcore is like
yeah,
one big family,
yeah, it's really really cool. So
Yeah, and it's almost like I had a similar experience in that there was only a handful of us. I got into hardcore through one of my friends at my high school, and yeah, then it kind of, it's like a disease, it kind of like spreads from there, and then more kids get into it, it's wild, and or like a plague, and you know about plagues from your writing, which we'll get into, but with Honor, you guys, you put out some albums on Victory. I was really happy, back again to Victory Records. I was really happy to see you guys land on such an influential hardcore label and label in general. How did that whole connection come about?
Yeah, so I mean, we started out, of course, just kind of releasing a demo, right, in 2002, I believe. Our first tour was December 2002, so we were kind of on our own for a couple months. Our first tour was like a week and a half long, and we just totally DIY booked, and I could tell you stories about that, of course, too. But we eventually went on to Stillborn Records and they re-released our demo, and then released Heart Means Everything, our first full length. And then I believe Victory reached out, a couple labels reached out, and we kind of talked to them and stuff, and that's kind of how Victory came about. They took us out there to meet them, and of course, like you said, it's such an influential label, and we said, yeah, we'll do a record with you guys. So yeah, I mean, we're very fortunate. I mean, Stillborn Records, they pushed the heck out of us too, and Jamie was amazing and like hooking us up with tours and supporting us, and he basically taught us to be road dogs, right? So that's Hatebreed's model to this day, right? So I mean,
Oh yeah,
during
I mean,
our heyday, yeah,
those guys are like if they're the gold standard of doing that, just like touring relentlessly and doing whatever it takes to get to your shows against all odds. Like I think one of their vans broke down one time, and they just put the members in the back of a pickup truck, the members in the equipment. So
yeah,
that's crazy.
All you need.
Yeah,
it was just, that was kind of what we learned, was just get out there. And I was working a job at the time, full-time job, whatever. It was just after college for me. And I remember we just kept getting shows. He would get us on different things, and say, we'd get home from something. Oh yeah, we got this lined up, and I eventually left my job and we went full time for a few years. But yeah, it was just like Bill, like he would get us on. Just get out there and do it. Just play for as many people as you can. So
yeah.
But yeah, so then we went and did the This Is Our Revenge on Victory. So we did the one album there. We toured on that a little bit. I think we did a full US on that. We did a UK tour on that. And then we did a European tour. And then we kind of broke up, I'd say, around 2006. So, and again, I'm saying kind of because here we are playing shows in 2025. So,
Well, you guys probably went on more of like a hiatus than an actual breakup, yeah?
yeah, well, around 2005, our singer left, Todd Mackey. He left to do other things. For a short period of time, we had another singer, Kevin White. So he did a European tour and a tour with Strike Anywhere, and a couple other shows. And then we had kind of started Ambitions in the interim. We pretty much disbanded at the time, and then we did a couple reunions in 2008, 2010, and 2013 with Todd returning. And yeah, I mean, we just did a couple things, and then we didn't really expect to kind of come back together until 2019. I guess the stars aligned, you could say, and we just kind of swinging back around, and now we're doing stuff again, which has been a blast. Totally different than the Road Dog days, right? Because we all are in a different spot in life, but we're doing whatever we can and having a lot of fun. And we did make a new record on pure noise called Boundless that came out in 2023. So, yeah.
Yeah, that one flew under my radar, so I'm gonna have to check it out. We were talking about it before the show, so yeah, definitely. And with Ambitions, you said you had started that in the interim, and influentially, like you guys kind of are very similar to with Honor and the older stuff, but you definitely, I think, lean more into the melody and like the harmonies and actual singing and whatnot. So, what do you feel like influenced you guys at the time whenever you were putting that project together?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was a lot of the same influences that we're talking about, but we even skewed even more, I guess you could say old school, right? So, a lot of like Dag Nasty, Bold, H2O, Stretch Armstrong, just a lot of the Revelation bands and Youth of Today and a lot of stuff like that. So yeah, Embrace. Did I mention that already? I don't know. Quicksand. We kind of went, a little bit rock a little later on.
Yeah.
But yeah, Ambitions was actually born out of a With Honor outtake song. So so when we were recording
Really?
our Victory album, This Is Our Revenge, we recorded that with Brian McTernan at Salad Days in 2005. So I think we had 12 songs going in, and I think 11 made it onto the record. So we had essentially an extra song that was all done musically that was a little bit different. So we were living at Brian McTernan's. He had like a house, and his studio was in the garage at that time. That's where Salad Days was at that point, and then it was, I think, just about to move. So we were living in the house. So Brian McTernan showed us how to track some stuff, because we were tracking some guitars like when he wasn't there occasionally, and whatever. So one night, me and my brother went in the studio, and he says, "Yeah, we've got this extra song. Like, I got some lyrics. Why don't we try to do something with it?" So just me and him. I think everybody else was like watching shows or whatever inside the house. So I went in the vocal booth, and he was in the control room at Salad Days, and he says, "All right, let's try to do this." And I had never sang in a band. I'd maybe done backups or whatever, and I was fairly confident I could sing, just from singing in the shower or whatever, or
Sure.
singing along and things, whatever. But so that was it was a blast. He would say, "All right, let's try this," and I would try something. It's, "Oh yeah, that sounds like H2O. Let's keep it." So it was just me finding my voice in the studio with this outtake song, and it just was such fun. And we ended up telling Brian after. We said, "Hey, we got that extra track. We called it the Bold song, right?" And we said, "Could we have that? Could we have that track?" And so he eventually, did a rough mix and sent it over to us, and that's how Ambitions was born. And that song was called In Between. And it made it onto the demo. I think we recorded that song 3 times, because we had a Salad Days version, then we did a 4-song demo, and then we re-recorded it for our Question EP, which was our first official release on Think Fast Records.
Wow.
So yeah, that song was recorded 3 times. But yeah, so Ambitions was born out of a With Honor outtake.
Wow.
That's kind of how it happened.
It's like Perfect Strangers and then Family Matters, Like
Yeah.
Harriet was a character on Perfect Strangers, and then they spun her off and did her own show. I don't know.
Yeah.
That might be a bad analogy. But
Yeah, we did. We kind of spun off and tried something different. And, like I would say it has the With Honor vibe. So originally it was just me, my brother Jeff, and John Ross, the drummer of With Honor. We were kind of like a 3-piece studio-ish project. So us 3, like I wrote some of the guitars and kind of did double duties and recording and everything. And I think we each played bass, and then we recorded that at our buddy Greg Thomas's studio, Silver Bullet Studios, which is actually right in my hometown. It's right down the street.
Greg Thomas is supposed to be on this show.
I saw that. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really awesome.
Yeah.
Hi, Greg, in the future. But yeah, so we recorded it there, and we were kind of like a 3-piece, sort of project. And then we just got members to fill in for shows. And it took us a while to solidify a lineup. So we would just take show offers, Ambitions, and then just find, okay, now we got to find a guitarist this week, or, whatever it was. So we went through like a whole roster of members, just friends and stuff that would fill in. Greg being one of them, actually, I think filled in for some shows, and some other friends of ours. Yeah. So, it was a lot of fun. And then we eventually solidified a lineup. It was Keith Sidorowitz from Long Island and Jake Woodruff, who would go on to Defeater. who we just saw a couple weeks ago. Actually, Ambitions played the Comeback Kid Defeater show in Connecticut here, so it was cool little reunion. But yeah, we solidified in a lineup, and we did Ambitions for a couple of years, and then we disbanded, I guess, until recently. So yeah,
Man, like you were talking about earlier, we're all at different stages in our life. It's a little bit easier when you're in your early 20s and you may not have as many responsibilities or obligations or familial duties. Some people have those. I don't have those yet. But, when you get older, it almost seems like it can be probably more gratifying because then you can play shows, the ones that I don't want to say like, when you tour, like you can have some amazing shows, but then you can have some off nights, But then, you think about it, you plan for, like you're saying, Hellfire, you plan for one really awesome show, and then you just kind of do like maybe the festival circuit or weekend shows or something. And it seems like it's maybe less stressful. Would that be a fair assessment?
totally. Yeah, I mean, I think With Honor did break up back in the day, and I think one of the big stressors that we had was we were full time, like we were dependent on that to keep going to pay the rent and stuff because we were. Hey, Kelly.
Kelly Leonard. Hey.
Yeah, we were playing so many shows at the time, and you're in a van nonstop. And then nowadays, we've got jobs and everything, and some of us have families and things. So, I guess there's an appreciation, but also less stress, and it's just you appreciate things more. It's like I appreciate every show that we play, and not that I didn't back then, but just getting in a room and be able to do this with good friends is even more amazing now. So
yeah,
it's just been great.
Different vibes, man. Yeah, definitely. What is your most interesting tour story? And that can be with any band, with HAMARTIA, with Honor, Ambitions. Generally funny. I'm looking for funny, like if you've got something hilarious that happens, but it could be anything. What do you got?
Okay, craziest tour story. Okay, so like I said, we booked our own tour. And I want to say, I don't know, maybe in the middle of that week or whatever, we played North Carolina. And we happened to play with, I think it was Misery Signals. And actually, Greg was in the band at that point, because that's a whole other story. My brother left to form Misery Signals for a while, and Greg was in with Honor in the beginning days. So,
oh, wow.
But yeah. But we played North Carolina, and we played with Roger Miret and the Disasters. And they were great. We had a great time watching them. And then afterwards, a couple of us went up to Roger and we were just telling him, you guys are great. It was awesome playing together. It's an honor. And he said, yeah, you're the Honor guys, with Honor. And he goes, you guys were good. You remind me of Youth of Today. And we're like, oh, thanks. That's what we're going for. That's amazing, And,
wow.
He says, where are you from? We told him Connecticut. And he said, when are you getting home? And we said, Sunday. And he goes, well, we're playing the Agnostic Front. I believe it was the 25th anniversary show at CBGB's. He said, you guys, if you're coming home, then you should come on down and check it out. We said, oh, that's awesome. Yeah, we'll come down and check it out. And he goes, you know what? Fuck it. Come down and play it. He goes, yeah. He goes, come down. He goes, 3:00 load in. He goes, don't be early, but don't be late. So we're like, holy shit. So our first With Honor tour, no label, nothing, just happenstance. We ended up, playing CBGB. So I remember that Sunday we got stuck in traffic and we were going through the Holland Tunnel trying to make that 3:00 load in, right? And we
yeah. Oh God.
We were in the middle of traffic and we were like, oh my God, and we finally made it. We might have been a minute or two past. Like we literally had, it might have been Greg. A couple people ran out of the van to run to CB's while we were in traffic to make sure to check in and say, hey, we're here. And of course we get there and there's nobody there yet because the doors aren't open. It's 3:00. I don't think it was quite a matinee, but it was an early show.
Sure.
So yeah, we went in and he said, you'll be using Vinny Stigma's cab, and I'm like, this is fucking amazing.
Oh wow.
So that was our first tour. We got to play CBGB's Agnostic Front show. So yeah, that was one of the craziest things. And then we went on. Since then, we ended up, back in the days, touring with Agnostic Front and Madball and we played with AF in Europe and stuff. And
wow,
amazing guy to just take a chance on, just some random people that he met at that show. So,
man, And you know what? Real recognizes real, man. Like those guys are like legit, and they've been around doing it forever. And they probably saw a spark in you guys, and just wanted to give you guys a boost. I think that's incredible.
Yeah, it was amazing. So to me, that's still one of the standout moments of anything that I've done. So,
That's
and I guess
wild, man.
I'll give you another if you have time.
Sure, we got
Yeah.
all the time in the world.
All right. Yeah. So another one, I guess, favorite memories was one of our favorite places to play was the Palladium up in Worcester, Massachusetts. Still is. We just played there actually outdoors for Metal Fest last fall. Um, but I remember we played the upstairs Palladium, and smaller kind of than the downstairs and downstairs there. And we're playing, and it was just an amazing show. Full house, everybody reacting, going crazy, singing along, whatever, having a great time. And the power goes out. I believe that the microphone went out, if my memory serves, and then the power went out, so all our amps went out, and then our
Oh,
drummer just instinctively kept playing. I believe the song was "More Than Heroes," which is a song off our "Heart Means Everything" album, and the crowd just sang along. So all you heard was the whole crowd singing along with the drums, with no other instruments, no vocals, and we finished the
oh,
song with
wow,
just the crowd. So yeah, it was just an amazing memory in time. So and I
that's
guess
epic.
yeah, and now I'm here in the dark too with no power. So
I was going to say this seems to be a recurring theme with hardcore musicians and shows and whatnot. So,
yeah,
wow, that's crazy. I was looking for a meeting a hooker at a gas station story, but that might be for like Ezek or somebody like that when he
yeah,
comes back to this
that's not
show.
me, I guess.
Yeah, man, that's crazy, man. And that really just kind of shows like the cohesion and the spirit of like the hardcore scene. The fact that they knew all your lyrics and were able to keep it going till the end, man. That's incredible.
Yeah, and props to John. He just kept drumming. Like I said, I guess the faith was there that power will be restored, order will be restored somehow, right? So
I have a similar story in that, and I won't name which band did it, but I think they went up and messed with the power and the breakers. We were playing a basement show, and just we couldn't get any power to our instruments, anything, just everything went dead. But miraculously, when they played, the power came back on. You may have heard of this band. I'm not going to say who it is, and people in the hardcore scene know who they are. But it was a real shit move on their part, and we didn't get an ending a cappella song, so
yeah,
it sucked. But
yeah.
so let's talk about your trajectory as an author a little bit. Now, before you and I got on live, I was talking to you, and you had said that you had a corporate job, and that you made the move from doing a corporate job into being an author.
Hmm.
And you've penned a few books, and you've got some series, and you've had some success from it. So much to the point where it's your main career. Now,
Yeah.
I have a few questions. Like, one, what inspired you to do that? What motivated you to go along the path of being an author? And two, when you actually did quit the corporate job, were you nervous? Were you like, what's going to happen? Was there like this like fear of the unknown?
Yes, all of the above. So yeah, I guess as far as the genesis of it, I'm trying to get myself in a little more light here because it's actually dark out. We must be having some kind of storm or something here. So, but yeah, so in addition to passion for music, the thing that I always wanted to be was a writer since I would say, man, going back to second or third grade. I just always loved reading, always loved writing. I remember in one of my old schools, elementary schools, they used to have this cool program where you'd write your own books, then you'd kind of like hand stitch the binding or something in class. It was like a project, and you'd draw and kind of type out on those early computers or whatever, and make your own books. And so when I was like 10, I had a typewriter and then eventually a word processor. I would submit to traditional publishers, as a kid.
When you were 10?
Yeah, like a self-addressed stamped envelope, typed out the manuscript and submit, go by the Writer's Digest guidelines and all, or whatever. Um, and I actually had a collection of rejection letters from back then. That things
Damn.
like, you're very ambitious for a 10-year-old, but we're not going to make an offer to publish George and the Robot or whatever. That was one of the actual titles. embarrassingly. But yeah, so I knew that I wanted to do that since I was a kid, and I wrote for years and read a lot of Stephen King and Dean Koontz and Christopher Pike and a lot of I was into the horror stuff and sci-fi and stuff. And then I kind of got into the music end of it. But I did go to college and got I have a bachelor's degree in English, and then I had a variety of corporate gigs because essentially there was the gatekeepers, right? There was the traditional publishers, and you'd have to get an agent, submit, a lot of rejection, and it's a very, very tough thing to break into. So I
Sure.
kind of gave up on that dream somewhat, did the music thing, and then enter my I guess you'd call midlife crisis years, right? The mid 30s. I was working a corporate job. I was actually a Stanley Black and Decker in the office. I was a business systems analyst, and I had some good years there, but I realized, I said, what have I always wanted to do, and why am I not doing it? And I said, well, I've always wanted to be a writer since I was a little kid, and I've got to make this happen because I'm not getting any younger. Like, why am I not doing it? So I started poking around, and I found out actually that, well, a couple things. So we had a work Christmas party at Stanley Black and Decker in December 2011, and there was like a grab bag of like prizes you could win. And I was like, checking out the prizes before the dinner. And, it wasn't one of those ones where you trade for the prize that you won. It was just you won something, right? So I saw on the table there was a Kindle, an Amazon Kindle. It was like one of the early versions, like black and white, whatever. And I looked at that and I said, man, I'd love to win that Kindle. Like, I want to read some more. And, ebooks are a new thing. And of all the people that night, and there had to be like 50 people, I won the Kindle.
Oh, wow.
So I feel like it was fate. so I started to read, get back into reading even more. And I was poking around in there, and I eventually stumbled across a message board. So kind of like they had like the Bridge 9 boards, the B9 board. They had
Yeah.
a message board that's still around to this day called the K boards, which is the Kindle boards. And I saw all these people on there, and I realized some of the books I was reading on Kindle were indie published. It was it was DIY. Like, people were getting their own covers made, they were writing. And suddenly there was no gatekeepers. There was no traditional publishers getting in the way, and you could just, self-publish your own stuff. So I remember there was one thread on there that said the 50,000 sold club, right? So it was like, how many sales have you got with your ebooks, and what's your genre? And someone would say, zombie books, 50,000 sold. And I was like, this is incredible. And people were starting to talk about leaving their jobs, that they were making enough money to, to sustain themselves with these $3 ebooks because, the market was new. There was a lot of voracious readers. Ebooks were new. And one of the big ones on there was, I don't know if you've seen this show. There's a show called Silo on Apple TV.
No.
I don't know if you've heard of it. There's a book too called Wool. Whoops. And anyways, it was a TV series, but that was an indie author that was one of the first Kindle published authors. And he's since gone on to, get signed to a publishing house and had a show made of his book. But I remember I was reading his book. We were on vacation in Cape Cod in 2012 in the summer, and I turned to my wife and I said, "This book I'm reading right now is amazing. There's people doing this." I said, "Give me 1 year and I'm going to do this," which was maybe stupid, but I just said, "I've got to make this happen." So I started writing. It was kind of at the height of The Walking Dead, right? So I started writing a series. And the short story is, within 8 months, I'd quit my job and gone full time.
You were able to sustain yourself enough to be able to
Absolutely
just
not
do it. Oh, no.
Well, no. So that's the twist. So what happened was things started to kind of take off. So I wasn't quite where I needed to be, but one of the things was all the writers on Kindle wrote in series. That was a big thing. Is you would give the first book away or do a discount, and then a lot of people would download it, and then they would get hooked on the series. So creating series with characters that people liked was one of the main reasons, ways to make a living. So things were really starting to look like I could see that if I could commit to it, I could do it. So I basically got fed up with my job and ended up leaving. And within a year, I was able to sustain myself, and I've been doing it full time now since May 1st, 2013. So about 13 years.
Man.
Yeah. So I just stuck with it and, was able to make it work. And yeah.
That's really inspiring, man. I love hearing stories like that. You know, being creative types, you have to approach things with an entrepreneurial spirit, and you have to stay committed. You have to stay disciplined, and you have to just trust that things are going to work out. It may not be immediately, but eventually, I feel that fortitude and determination is going to get you to where you need to be. And clearly, you got there, man. That's so awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I'm lucky and humbled by it, but yeah, I'm able to do that every day. I get up and write about post-apocalyptic stuff or zombies, and do the music on the side, and so yeah, that's been my dream gig as a child has come true. So
I mean,
amazing.
that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, and what kind of motivated you to write in the zombie realm? Are you a fan of zombie films? I know you mentioned The Walking Dead. Myself, I'm a big fan of the Romero films, and I noticed on the Better Guns and Gardens that you said you'd contributed one of your stories to the George Romero Foundation or something like that, and so like what sort of zombie films were you into growing up? I like Lucio Fulci as well. What do you got?
Yeah, everything. I mean, I think probably one of the first zombie, I kind of went back and of course I love Romero. The Dawn of the Dead remake, I remember seeing that in the theater in 2000. What was that?
Awesome. It is awesome.
Yeah. And I just, I know there's haters because the original, is amazing, of course. I'm just trying to get in a little more light here because I feel that I've gotten, again, I got no power, but
no, you're good.
Yeah, as long as
they can hate, man, because I view it almost like apples and oranges.
Yes. I mean, I was blown away. Like, even the fast zombies, whatever. The first 10 minutes of that movie, I was like hooked. And, it was right around the time of 28 Days Later. And, of course, I love all the original stuff too. But, I mean, that was great. It was amazing.
Yeah.
So, so I love that. And, I think in the last, I'd say, me and the wife have always loved horror. So we've been going to like almost all the horror movies in the theater since like the late 90s. When I was a kid, my parents weren't so much, or my mom, you can't see any of that kind of stuff. So I had to kind of backfill a lot of that data. But we've deep dived all the like B horror movie stuff over the past 5-10 years, and really,
oh, beautiful.
Yeah, just we'll go to like CT Horror Fest is a big thing here. Connecticut's amazing. I know, like I said, Greg, he's got a horror themed recording studio that we've done a lot of projects at. So yeah, it's been amazing.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, I think my mom actually recommended Night of the Living Dead to me. Nice. So, that one wouldn't have been too bad. But yeah, what you were saying about Dawn of the Dead, that movie, I think is kind of unfairly shat upon. I think it's it kind of took that whole, zombie genre. And like you said, we didn't really get to see fast moving zombies very often. I think the only other times you see it are in like 28 Days Later and World War Z.
Yeah.
And I have kind of an equal love for slow and fast moving zombies. I think the slow are cool because it's ominous and it's just like, it adds kind of a different mood and a different vibe to everything.
Yeah.
But then, with the fast zombies, it's like, oh, holy shit, this is terrifying. I better fucking run, So,
oh, yeah.
And yeah, it's interesting we brought that up because I think I need to definitely revisit that film. Were you ever a Call of Duty Zombies player?
I guess more so probably Resident Evil, stuff like that. So
okay,
sort of, yeah, along that tip. But yeah, I didn't do the Call of Duty so much, but yeah,
they have zombie levels in there that are terrifying.
Nice. Yeah, I remember Left 4 Dead playing that. That was a good one. Left 4 Dead 2, I believe, getting in that for a while.
What is like the critical response on your books? Is it usually positive? Is it a lot of good stuff coming out of readers?
Yeah. So I'm primarily, as I said, like a Kindle author. There's paperbacks through there. I'm what you call a hybrid now. So I've got a publisher for certain things. Like I've got a sci-fi series for Audible called Sandstorm that leans a little more sci-fi, and that one's on a publisher. And then I've got a trilogy I'm signed for with another publisher for this coming year. I'm primarily indie though. But yeah, so as far as the reception to it, I remember those first, few reviews when I first put out my first series was Contamination, which was a zombie series, right? And like I said, kind of had good timing on that because that was at the height of The Walking Dead in 2012. Before Glenn and Abraham got beat down by Negan. Spoiler.
Yeah, yeah.
So, which I know turned a lot of people off, but this was prior to that, and it was Walking Dead was at its peak, and I released a zombie series, so it was just good timing. But the first reviews, you get a mixture. It was mostly positive. Now I just, I probably accumulated, frankly, thousands of reviews across all the books, so I don't really look at them all that much. But when I do, the averages are usually good, like 4.5 stars or 4. So yeah, I mean, I'm happy that you're always going to have people that hate it and people that love it. I've grown thicker skin over the years, and I think you just do the best you can with everything and be true to what be true to your vision. So I'll just write, and I guess that's what I've said. Like, I've gone to indie writer conventions and stuff and been on different panels and things, and that's kind of a through line that I've always said is I do the best that I can at that moment with every given project before I release it into the world, and then I move on, and how readers perceive it, kind of like with music, that's kind of on them. Like, it's out of my control. All I can do is just deliver what my vision is and then see what happens, so.
With this show, I got a comment one time, and I thought it was hilarious. Somebody called me a leprechaun with a Richard Spencer haircut, and I thought it was hilarious. So what is your most, whether it be, I guess it would kind of have to be a negative comment. What's the funniest, bad comment that you've ever got as far as your works, if there's anything that you remember?
Oh, geez, I'm trying to remember. I know that I used to know that. I remember, I mean, I'll get emails and stuff, and again, I'm under a pseudonym, but like I don't really. I mean, literally, the impetus for the pseudonym was I don't know how my first book is going to be. It's my first book, so I'm just going to throw it under a pen name and see what happens. And then it kind of sort of took off, so I just kept. So Piperbrook is my alter ego. So like when I go to writer conventions, I answer to Tyler. It's because TW is like Tyler Piperbrook.
Sure.
So like, if someone says Tyler in a room, I'll look because that's my other ego, my alter ego. Yeah. So, So I'll get emails and stuff sometimes, as well as reviews and things. I remember there's this one lady once, and I never responded, but she wrote this big email, and I can't remember the exact wording, but it was just like, this is ridiculous. Like, you rip off Dean Koontz, like. Your biography even sounds like his. Like, you live with your family and your dog, and I'm like, every author's bio says they live with their family and whatever pet they have, and a pet rabbit named Joe or whatever it is. And like, she was just tearing into me and like, how could you possibly, basically I was such a fraud, and I was like, man, this lady must have had a really bad day. And I don't remember what her name was or anything, but I do remember that email, and it hurt at the time a little bit, but then I didn't write back. I was just like, there's nothing I can say to this lady that's going to change her mind. And again, it's out of my hands.
Right.
So, but yeah, it was a scathing email that went on for like 3 or 4 paragraphs. Just what a ripoff I was and this and that. I was like, wow, well, I do love Dean Koontz. So maybe it's a compliment. I don't know.
Good artists borrow, great artists steal, and everybody's influenced by everything, whatever. But, too much free time. That's what it sounds like with her.
Yeah, I mean, you never know what's going on in someone's life, right? So, and I know, like in the indie author community, one of the things is reviews. Like, you never comment on reviews on Amazon. That's just bad form. So,
yeah.
That's like I said, that's the reader space. Once I put something out in the world, they can say whatever, have whatever conversation, but that doesn't involve me because that's up to them. They hate it, they love it. That's up to them, and it's not up to me to change their mind. So.
And they're also probing for that reaction, because you're essentially, if you reply to them and you are indignant or you don't think that what they said was, correct or whatever, that's what they're looking for. They want you to engage with them in a hostile and negative way so they can be like, oh, TW Piperbrook, well, I sent him a nasty message and then he sent me one back and then it turned into, and that's what they want. So it's like, why engage them,
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You never win an internet argument, right?
No, definitely not. With your audiobooks, I've been listening, like I said, to Better Guns and Gardens, and you don't narrate that one. And, you're a front man and you got a good voice. Is that something you do on your other ones? And if not, do you have plans to do that?
I think generally, I've thought about it. Generally, most authors in my circles, we always hire a professional narrator. So I mean, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't rule it out. But it's definitely an art form in itself to narrate, right? So, I mean, the guy that I got for my first series was really cool. He's gone on to I think he was kind of just starting out at the time too, and I sort of took a gamble in the audio realm, and that kind of went well too. And in fact, audio is probably one of my bigger revenue streams now is audio. Almost more than ebooks. So audiobooks are huge. They're really growing. A lot of people love them. But yeah, so I think I sort of leave it to the professionals. There's a lot of just amazing narrators. In fact, the guy I got to narrate Better Guns and Gardens, Sean Runette, he was like a character actor in Law and Order and some other stuff.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so these guys are serious. Like they know what they're doing. So I kind of leave it to them, but I wouldn't rule out doing it at some point.
That's cool, man.
I probably I probably wouldn't do it when I'm hoarse like I am now, but
yeah, it's usually good to give your vocal cords a rest a little bit. I come from media. I'm a Hollywood guy. I do all sorts of creative shit, sometimes to varying degrees. With your current, life, what are you watching? What are you reading since you're an author? What are you listening to? What do you got?
Yeah, I'm kind of doing all the above. As far as watching, we just finished watching Dexter: New Blood, I think it's called, the newest Dexter series. So that was really good. I'm watching Yellow Jackets, which is great. I haven't started the new season. I think it's season 3 just came out, so I've got to watch that. As far as reading, I'd say my favorite author currently is Blake Crouch. He's amazing. He actually kind of started out in the indie realm around the time that I did, and has since kind of moved into TV. So he has a book called Dark Matter that just came out as a series on Apple TV, and so I read Blake Crouch. I'll read Stephen King. I've been reading some rereading or reading some Stephen King stuff because my son has gotten into it, so he'll read some stuff too. As far as what I'm listening to, she's all over the place with that too, right? So I listen to a lot of hair metal still. So to circle back, I'll rock the Hair Nation on XM radio. So I'll do that, and then I've been revisiting some classics like you mentioned Undying earlier. We actually played with them. With Honor played with them some of the Misery Signals last shows last fall. So we got
nice.
Those guys for the first time, and we had known them back in the day somewhat, so we got to see them and reunite and hang out, and so I've been rocking some older stuff there too. So yep,
that's great, man. You got a full life, man. You got a lot going on. I think that's so amazing. And with life, sometimes we look back upon growing up and we think, well, could I have done this differently? Could I have done this and still be doing what I'm doing now? What's one piece of advice that you would give to your younger self?
I'd say hang in there, right? So, I mean, there was probably some discouragement back at as far as the writing stuff back in the day, where I just thought it wasn't a viable option to do, and I was able to make it work years later because technology changed, right? So I think there's so many parallels to like DIY hardcore and DIY books, because that's essentially what I started out doing was indie publishing, right? Just like you get out there with a demo and you go on tour, and I got out there with the books and put them out. And so, yeah, hang in there to my 10-year-old self that said they wouldn't publish George and the Robot. And one day that one will come out. I don't know when, but yeah, I mean,
George and the Robot.
Yeah, I think everything for a reason. I've been kind of thinking lately, right? I think if a door closes, I feel like there's a reason. If a door opens, there's a reason. And another writer buddy that I've got has an adage, or I'm sure he took it from somewhere, but if it's not a hell yes, it's a no. I think it's a common thing but so just, see what you gravitate towards and don't take the pitfall so hard, right? And just put your effort into something, and if it's not working, find something else that is, and just enjoy shit while you're doing it,
Yeah. Or table it, maybe come back to it later.
Yeah, it's another possibility.
Yeah, sometimes stuff doesn't pop off right away, just don't get discouraged, don't get hung up on one thing, and just, maybe find something else you're interested in and come back to that later. Like you did. You said you started it when you were younger, and then you really wanted to pursue it, and so you eventually, it's like full circle,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Do you know who the author Louis Sacker is?
Yes. He had
He wrote
a book called Holes, right? I believe.
He did do Holes, and he also did a series called the Wayside School series.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay, they were like huge books back in the day for children's literature. And I just want to tell this story because if you're familiar with the author, he's kind of funny, and he's kind of got like a pretty lighthearted approach. But, I wrote to him when I was younger, and, because I really liked those Wayside School books. And he sent me a letter back. The question I had asked him, I said, was, spoiler alert, if you haven't read them, I don't know that you will, but Wayside School gets destroyed in one of the books. And I said, is there any chance that you will rebuild Wayside School? Now, he sent me a letter back. I was really surprised about that. And his stationery had a picture of a toilet on it, and it said, "From the office of Louis Sacker."
Nice.
And I will never forget that. I was like, man, this guy's got a great sense of humor. And then he said he wasn't going to rebuild it, so.
Oh, man.
Damn it. Yeah. But, yeah, then he did Holes, and it turned into a semi-successful movie. But, well, Jay, dude, I want to thank you for being here. I think you're doing great things, man, and I'm really enjoying the book, and I'd like to be able to read some more of your stuff in the future. And, with Ambitions and with Honor and with your material, where can we find you at online?
Yeah, as far as the author stuff, it's TW Piperbrook on Amazon, probably the best place. Just search it by name. I've got a website too, twpiperbrook.com. Yeah, Instagram for, with Honor, Ambitions, and Hamartia. We're doing like a show, Hellfira, and maybe another one. As we'll see. And yeah, we'll be doing some Ambition shows, some with Honor stuff as it comes up, and having fun with it. And as far as the book stuff goes, I've got a book called Fear the Dark. It's a EMP post-apocalyptic thriller. It's on pre-order right now. I'm working on it. Should be out this summer. Yeah, and we didn't get into it, but stay tuned. I'm diving in with my childhood best friend. We're getting ready to film a movie based on a comic and script that I wrote next month. So we're going to try to film that, and I'm supposed to have an acting role in that as well. So we'll try that out and see how that goes. So stay tuned. I'll probably announce things about that on the Piperbrook end. So
hell yeah. Yeah. I didn't know you did comics too. Did you actually write it, or did you draw it out as well?
Yeah, I scripted some comics, and I contracted artists that are much better than I am with my stick figures to do the art, and I'll probably do Kickstarters for them. I've got a publisher for one of them, so that'll be coming out. It's actually an adaptation of one of my book series called Outage.
Okay.
So it's going to be eventually released on a publisher once we have 3 issues completed. So hopefully it'll be in comic shops and everything. So this publisher goes there. So,
dude, amazing, man! You're doing so many awesome things. Dude, I want to thank you so much for being here, and I want to thank everybody that has attended the live stream. I want to thank Rebecca Lore again for hooking this up. You're awesome. And I want to thank, Kelly. I know she was here, and the whole Sisterhood crew. I want to thank you guys for getting involved as well. And as I had mentioned at the top of the hour, if you like films, if you like hardcore, you might like my merchandising company, Hell's Heart Merch Co. Go to hellsheartco.bigcartel.com. Use the code 20 for 20% off of your entire order. Fine Bella Canvas Tribal and T-shirts. Check them out. You'll love them. They feel like a dream. And if you are watching on YouTube, give us a like, give us a subscribe, click on the little bell for notifications. Give us a comment, too. That would be fantastic so that it would increase us within the YouTube algorithm so more people will see the videos and see all the talented artists and collaborators that are being featured on this channel. And if you are listening on Spotify or Apple Music, give us a follow, give us a rating. We would appreciate it. Everybody, thank you so much for attending the stream. Namaste. God bless. Be good. Thanks so much, Jay.
yeah, thank you. Appreciate it.
Hell's Heart, lights again, money.